Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're strapping on the armor, I guess you could say.
The emotional resilience armor, for sure.
Exactly. We're heading right into this, well, the messy, sometimes frustrating, but always transformative world of Agile coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And we should be clear, this isn't about the textbook stuff. We're not here to just recite the Agile manifesto or tick boxes on a checklist.
No, not at all.
Our mission today is to really do a deep dive into the rough edges, the corner cases, the difficult bits, the real-world friction.
That's it. We're talking about what happens when the theory meets reality. We're pulling from coaches who've been there in the trenches and learned things the hard way.
So the core idea we need to get across right away is that this isn't a one-size-fits-all job.
No.
Yeah.
It is fundamentally a bespoke job.
Yeah.
It's all driven by context. It relies on some deep psychological insights, really exceptional communication skills, and this is crucial, the ability to drive continuous and visible change.
Okay, so let's unpack that. What's the ultimate mission? It sounds like it's way more than just being a highly paid calendar organizer.
Yes. The ultimate goal, really, is to work yourself out of a job.
Right.
Your whole mission is to grow a productive, self-aware team that starts to think for itself.
Yeah.
You want them to find their own way, to internalize the principles so deeply that, they just don't need you anymore.
That's such a critical distinction. It means the coach has to be constantly adapting their style based on where the team is at, their maturity level.
Precisely. The sources talk about this in terms of two main personas. For a team that's brand new to this, you're like a sports coach.
A sports coach? How so?
You are literally demonstrating the practices. You stand up during the stand-up to show them how it's done. You show them how to write a good user story. Yeah. You enforce the time boxes. You're showing them the mechanics.
The physical motions.
Exactly. But once they get that, once they're experienced, you have to shift. You become more of a life coach. You stop giving them the answers. Instead, you start listening really, really deeply. And you ask these powerful questions that help them find their own way, diagnose their own problems.
That sports coach versus life coach idea. That really gets to the heart of why context is everything. I mean, there's no single formula. The sources even had that great counterintuitive example about the project manager in the stand-up.
Oh, yeah. For a really immature team that has no direction, you might actually tell the project manager, please come to the stand-up, just so they can get clarity and make decisions on the spot.
But for a mature team?
For a mature team, that's the absolute worst advice. You want management far away from that meeting so it can be a peer-to-peer coordination, not a status report. It's about meeting the team where they are.
And if you don't, you become that. But what did the sources call it? The Agile zealot?
The zealot. The person who treats anyone not doing Agile like they're an idiot who just hasn't seen the light. That approach just kills trust instantly.
So even though the coach has to be adaptable, they need their own internal compass. The sources lay out 5 critical habits.
Right. Lead by example, keep your balance, set a realistic pace, mind your language, and learn as you go.
And that lead by example 1 is so practical. They use the sustainable pace idea.
It's such a powerful nonverbal tool. I mean, if you're constantly telling the team, don't burn out, have a work-life balance, but you're sending emails at midnight,
your words are just noise.
They're meaningless. But if you visibly pack up your bag and leave at a sensible time, you make that principle real. You show, you don't just tell, that burnout is not okay here.
And what about mind your language? That's more about the psychological side.
It connects right back to that zealotry point. You have to avoid jargon that makes people feel stupid or, like children.
So instead of saying your story isn't compliant with the definition of done,
right,
you just say, hey, can we just clarify what the customer is expecting before we say this feature is finished? It has to be inclusive. It's about solving a problem, not following a dogma. That sets us up perfectly. If this is all about human interaction, we have to start with the most foundational and maybe most overlooked skill of all, deep listening.
Absolutely. The whole foundation is communication, and it starts with listening, not talking.
Right.
The sources have that great, if slightly dark, doctor joke. The patient says, it hurts when I raise my arm like this.
And the doctor says, then don't raise your arm like that.
Exactly. It's the perfect example of hearing the words, but completely failing to engage with the actual problem.
So deep listening it's an active skill.
It's active and it's interactive. And first, you have to create the right conditions. That means fighting the urge to interrupt with your own advice, or even worse, to tell a similar story about yourself.
Oh, that's a killer. Stealing the stage.
Totally. So you have to be intentional. You physically create space. Maybe you go for a walk, grab a coffee, just get away from the noisy desks and the distractions.
And you're using nonverbal cues, eye contact, nodding, making those and ah sounds to show you're locked in. But the real magic happens next with paraphrasing.
Paraphrasing is the coach's superpower. It's as simple as saying, okay, so what I think I'm hearing is
The problem with the data team caused a 2-day delay, is that right?
precisely. And in that one sentence, you do two things. One, you check if you actually understood. And two, you show that person respect. You show them their problem was important enough for you to listen that carefully.
The sources also have this great mental trick for staying neutral when you're doing that.
Yes, this is so important for separating fact from interpretation. So if a team member, let's call him Chris, comes to you and says, Nicola totally ignored my design, and that's why this is broken.
Okay.
You as the coach have to mentally translate that. You hear it as, Chris holds the opinion that Nicola ignored his design.
Ah, so you're not accepting his conclusion as fact. The fact is his belief.
Exactly. The belief is the data point. That simple mental shift keeps you neutral and stops you from jumping into a blame game.
And that neutrality is just as important when you're reading body language. We think we're experts at it, but
we make so many assumptions. Like, we assume if someone isn't making eye contact, they must be hiding something.
right. Or being dishonest.
When in reality, they might just be concentrating really hard on remembering a complex technical detail. You look for patterns, for changes from their normal behavior, but you never take one single cue as proof of anything.
And of course, the foundation under all of this is trust, especially when someone tells you something in confidence.
Trust is your currency. If it's gone, you're done. If a team member shares a concern privately, you have to, absolutely must, check with them before you mention it to anyone else. Betraying that confidence, even by accident, can undo months of work.
So once you've listened and you think you understand, the next big challenge is giving feedback that actually helps without making the other person immediately defensive.
And there's one core rule here. It's non-negotiable. You have to separate the raw information, what you saw or heard, from your personal assessment of it.
So lead with observation, not interpretation.
Exactly. Instead of walking up and saying, you were really disrespectful in that meeting, which is just a judgment, you start with the facts. I saw you take 3 different calls on your cell phone during the design meeting yesterday. That's the observation. Then you can add your assessment. And I'm concerned you might have missed the part about the schema change, which could cause problems for you later.
That's so much more powerful because it opens a door for them to explain maybe their kid was sick or there was a server on fire. It invites a conversation, not an argument.
It does. And we can't forget about the power of positive feedback, which the sources call catching them doing it right.
And this isn't just about making people feel good.
No, it has a dual function. When you say, hey, I saw you proactively reviewed Rebecca's code, that was great, it obviously encourages that person.
Yeah.
But it also does something to you, the coach.
How so?
It helps you mentally categorize that person as winner, as a positive contributor. And that reduces your own internal bias. So when they do make a mistake later, you're more likely to give them the benefit of the doubt.
That is a really subtle and profound point. Okay, but what happens when all the good communication in the world isn't enough and you have real conflict?
Conflict is inevitable, but it comes in 2 flavors. You have the open disagreements, 2 developers arguing about an architectural choice. That could be healthy.
Right.
The really dangerous kind is the festering concealed conflict, the resentment that builds up under the surface. That's what you have to watch out for.
And you have to be careful not to jump in and solve every little fight.
That's the tightrope you walk. The sources use that analogy of being a parent to whining kids. If you solve every squabble, they never learn to solve things for themselves.
So how do you decide when to step in?
A good rule of thumb is if the conflict is about process or technology, you let the team wrestle with it.
Yeah.
You facilitate, but you don't dictate. But if it gets personal, if there's disrespect or a real breakdown in trust, that's when you have to intervene.
And for those tough conversations, the sources bring in the Nonviolent Communication Framework, or NVC.
NVC is an essential tool. It's all about shifting the conversation away from blame and toward universal human needs. It's got 4 steps: observation, feeling, need, and request.
Okay, let's break that down with an example.
Okay, so observation is first, just the facts. I saw the new code was deployed to production without going through the QA environment. No judgment.
Then feeling.
You articulate the emotion. When I see that, I feel worried. Then the crucial step, the need. I feel worried because I have a need for safety and predictability in our process.
And finally, the request.
And it has to be a positive, actionable request, not a demand. Would you be willing to try a process where we get a verbal go-ahead from QA before we deploy next time?
It's so structured, but it completely changes the dynamic from you messed up to let's fix our process.
Exactly. And the thing that has to underpin all of this, especially in something like a retrospective, is the prime directive.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
this is fundamental for psychological safety.
Let's state it clearly because it's that important.
The prime directive states, regardless of what we discover, we understand and truly believe that everyone did the best job they could, given what they knew at the time, their skills and abilities, the resources available, and the situation at hand.
It's basically a radical act of empathy. It says we're not going to judge people's intent. We're going to look at the situation.
And if you truly, truly believe that, your whole approach to conflict changes. You stop asking, why did Joe screw this up? And you start asking, what in our system made it easy for Joe to fail?
That is the perfect foundation to move into our next section.
Right.
How you actually drive change and get people to adopt these new ways of working without becoming that zealot we talked about.
Right. You have to build bridges, not walls.
Yeah.
And a key part of that is realizing that when people object to something new, they aren't just being difficult. They're giving you valuable information.
This goes back to Dale Emery's idea of seeing objections not as resistance, but as information.
Yeah. Take refactoring.
Yeah.
A developer says, this will take longer than just writing the new feature. You have to acknowledge that. You say, you're right, it will take a bit longer today. But by spending 15 minutes cleaning this up now, we're saving ourselves hours of pain next month when we have to change it again. You frame it as an investment, not a chore.
And the best way to get people to try something new is to frame it as a time-boxed experiment.
This is a brilliant strategy because it lowers the stakes.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, from now on, we're all doing daily stand-ups forever, which sounds terrifying.
Right.
You say, let's just try a 15-minute stand-up every morning for the next 2 weeks. At the end, we'll look at the data and decide if it was helpful.
The genius is that it's not just about the data, it's psychological.
It completely flips the resistance. Because what happens is, after 2 weeks, people get used to the new way. The stand-up starts to feel normal. And suddenly, going back to the old chaotic way is the new change that feels uncomfortable. The burden of proof has shifted.
That is a fantastic little coaching hack. Another key tool is leading with questions instead of commands.
It's about tapping into the team's own intelligence. But you have to be so careful not to ask loaded questions.
Like that project manager in the anecdote who asked, don't you want people to think the project was successful?
Ugh, that's so manipulative. It's not a real question. It's an accusation disguised as a question, and it just destroys trust. You can only ask a question if you are genuinely curious about the answer.
So what are the good, powerful types of questions?
And the sources point to two main types. First, there are thinking questions. These are designed to get people to reflect on a higher level. So you ask things like, what insights are you having about this problem? Or what gaps can you see in our thinking here?
It forces them to step back from the immediate fire.
Correct. And the second, which is a classic for a reason, is the 5 whys technique from Toyota.
Right, for getting to the root cause.
It's so simple but so effective. Let's just run through the example they gave. It's so good. The problem is, we didn't ship the software yesterday.
Okay, so why number one?
Why? Because the database team found too many critical bugs.
Right. Why number two?
Why? Because our QA team didn't have enough time to test everything thoroughly.
Okay, why number three?
Why? Because QA is short-staffed, they couldn't hire the performance tester they needed.
Number four. Now we're getting into the organization.
Why? Because the recruitment department told us all non-critical hiring is frozen.
And the fifth and final why, the root cause.
Why? Because we can't afford any more testers based on this quarter's budget. And boom. The problem isn't the team's process. It's a systemic, organizational budget constraint. And that tells the coach, this isn't a coaching problem anymore. It's an escalation problem.
You can't run a retrospective to fix a budget freeze. That is brilliant. It moves you from blame to system thinking, which leads us into team health and motivation.
Yeah, and building a healthy team relies on what the sources call social glue and trust. And a lot of that is built in informal ways, like just eating lunch together.
Really? Just lunch?
You would be amazed what you hear over lunch that you will never, ever hear in a formal meeting. It's where the real, unfiltered concerns come out.
And for more structured trust building, they recommend the sharing personal histories exercise.
It's a great empathy builder. You just have the team share a few non-work things where they grew up, maybe a big challenge they overcame. It sounds simple, but it helps people see the person behind the job title, which makes them feel safer to disagree or be vulnerable later.
And safety also means having the right physical space. The coach has to be a relentless advocate for co-location.
Absolutely. Getting developers, testers, product people all sitting together, that's how you create an informative workspace, where the progress is literally radiating off the walls from the boards and charts.
Which brings us to one of my favorite stories from the sources, the board from a box. It's just a perfect lesson in utility over bureaucracy.
Oh, it's a great story. This team moves into a new fancy open plan office.
Glass walls, no whiteboards.
You got it. No place to put their team board.
Right.
So the project manager, Oli, he doesn't wait for facilities to maybe do something in 6 months.
He builds his own.
He grabs a giant corrugated cardboard box, some tape, some markers, and he just builds their entire Kanban board right there in the middle of their space. It was ugly, but it worked.
I can just imagine the reaction from the office aesthetics police.
Oh yeah, the locations department came by and said, you have to take that messy thing down.
Right.
But the team fought for it, and they won because it was so obviously useful. Even the VP of engineering backed them up because it was radiating progress. It was a testament to utility over appearance.
That focus on utility also ties into what really motivates people. The sources bring up Hertzberg's theory of hygiene factors versus motivators.
Right. Hygiene factors are things that, if they're bad, they make you miserable. A slow laptop, terrible coffee, unfair pay.
But if you fix them,
If you fix them, people don't suddenly become super motivated. They just stop being demotivated. They go back to neutral.
so what actually motivates people?
What motivates is job enrichment. Things like having autonomy, a sense of mastery, challenging work, feeling like you're achieving something meaningful.
Which is why individual financial incentives can be so dangerous.
They are toxic to collaboration. Alfie Kohn's work, Punished by Rewards, is so clear on this. If you pay a developer for lines of code, you get a lot of lines of terrible code. You're rewarding individual output, which kills the team dynamic. Any bonus should be team-based or company-based.
So if individual bonuses are out, how do you provide that enrichment and spark innovation? The sources had that amazing gold card system.
Gold cards are a fantastic idea. It's a formalized, protected system for innovation time. In the example, every developer gets 2 gold cards a month.
One card equals 1 day.
1 card equals 1 day to work on literally anything they want. It could be exploring a new technology, working on a passion project for the product, or, and this is key, tackling a nasty piece of technical debt that would never get prioritized otherwise.
It's a protected allowance.
It's protected. It's not like that vague 20% time that always gets cut when a deadline is near. It's a guaranteed boost for morale, autonomy, and innovation.
That's a great practical idea. Okay, now that we've covered the coaching mindset and team health, let's drill down into the core Agile practices themselves, starting with the heartbeat of the team, the daily stand-up.
The sources are so clear on this. The 3 questions, what I did yesterday, what I'll do today, what's in my way, those are just training wheels.
Just a starting point.
Exactly. The real goal is for the team to own the meeting. It should be about them coordinating with each other to get work flowing across the board, not about them reporting their status to a manager.
So the coach's job is to get them to that point of self-organization.
Yeah, and a great little trick for that is to use a speaking token, like a tennis ball. The person holding the ball speaks.
And then they throw it to the person they need to talk to next.
Right. It physically takes the control of the meeting's flow away from the coach and puts it in the team's hands.
Let's walk through that example with Joe, Larry, and Rebecca. It's a perfect illustration.
Okay, so Joe starts with the ball. He says his bit, then throws it to Larry. Larry says he's finished his module, but now he's blocked, waiting on Rebecca's API.
So he throws the ball to Rebecca.
Throws it to Rebecca. She catches it and says, that'll be ready by lunch. I just need Joe to review the data model first.
Yeah.
And she throws the ball back to Joe.
Who says he'll do it right after the meeting?
And just like that, they've synchronized their work for the morning. It wasn't a status report, it was a real-time coordination.
But what if they stumble into a really deep technical problem during that exchange?
That's what the parking lot is for. You have a space on the whiteboard, you just write down the issue, latency problem with the X service, and you move on. A smaller group can then tackle that right after the stand-up, so you don't derail the whole 15-minute meeting.
That means the stand-up itself should evolve. I loved that one team's customized checklist, the stand-up checkoff.
It's a great example of a team making the ceremony their own. Their checklist had specific things relevant to them, like designating who was exposed that day.
Meaning, who was the designated person to handle interruptions from outside the team?
Exactly. So the rest of the team could stay focused. The coach's job is to encourage that kind of customization.
Okay, next up. Understanding what to build, user stories. The big challenge is getting people to see them as conversations, not contracts.
Right. The sources use that lovely butterfly life cycle analogy. A story starts as an idea, which is the egg. That egg hatches into a conversation, the caterpillar phase, where everyone talks about it. That conversation leads to confirmation and tests, the chrysalis. And finally, it emerges as working software, the butterfly. The point is, it's a living, evolving thing.
And the mechanism for that evolution is the 3 C's: card, conversation, confirmation. And they really stress using physical index cards.
They call electronic tools information fridges. You put information and it gets cold, nobody looks at it.
Huh, I like that.
But a physical card on a table forces people to gather around it, to talk, to scribble on it together. It creates a shared understanding that a digital ticket just can't.
And the confirmation step is where you really pin down the scope.
Absolutely. That's where you define what done looks like before you write a line of code. The given when then template is perfect for this. Given I'm a logged in user, when I click buy, then I see the confirmation page. It's a clear, testable outcome.
This is where that book carousel anecdote is so illustrative. It shows how that conversation helps prioritize real business value.
It's a perfect example. So the team is building this book carousel for a library website. Larry, the developer, finds an edge case.
Okay.
He finds 4 book titles out of thousands that are super long. And on one old obscure browser version, the text gets slightly cut off. Fixing it would take days.
So he brings it up with Amanda, the product owner.
Right. And her first question is a business question. How many people even use that browser, and how likely is this to happen? The answer is basically never.
So she makes a business call.
She makes a business call. She says, we're not fixing it now. She literally writes on the story card, defect accepted. Long titles might truncate in IE10, defer fix. That's a conscious decision to prioritize value over perfectionism, and it only happens because they had the conversation.
It's a brilliant example. Okay, let's move on to making all of this work visible with the team board.
The board is the team's primary information radiator. The columns are pretty standard stories, in progress, done, but the coach's job is to change the team's behavior. The goal is to get a few stories all the way across the board to done, not to have 20 things started at once.
And this brings us back to Ollie's corrugated cardboard board. It's all about the utility.
It's the visual of it. No walls, so he uses a box. It's not pretty, but it's updated constantly. Anyone, the CEO, an intern, can walk by and see in 30 seconds what the team is doing. That visibility is so powerful that management couldn't justify taking it down.
And on that board, you use little avatars or names to tag who is working on what. Why is that so important?
Because it makes bottlenecks and overload instantly visible. If you see someone's cartoon avatar on 3 different tasks and one of them hasn't moved in 2 days, you know immediately that person's stuck or needs help. You don't have to wait for them to ask.
And when we're tracking progress, we have to distinguish between burn down and burn up charts.
Yes. The burn down chart is tactical. It's for 1 iteration, maybe 2 weeks. It shows work remaining. It's usually hand-drawn and thrown away. It helps the team see if they're on track to finish the sprint.
But the release burn-up chart is strategic.
It's totally strategic. It tracks the cumulative work completed over the whole release against the total scope. It's the chart you show the customer.
Why is it better for the customer?
Because if the line showing actual progress starts to fall way below the line showing the plan, the customer can see months in advance, oh, we're not going to make it. And that lets them have a strategic conversation about either cutting scope or changing the deadline.
All of this visibility is about driving towards one thing: a clear, shared understanding of what it means to be done.
The definition of done, or DOD,
Right.
is the team's social contract for quality. And it has to be a physical, visible checklist. And the sources are so firm on this. Testing is a team responsibility. It's not one person's job.
So what are some concrete examples of things on that checklist?
It has to be specific. Things like, code has been peer-reviewed. All unit tests are written, and they're all passing. The automated acceptance tests for the story have been created. User documentation is updated. Maybe even performance benchmarks are met.
And it's all or nothing.
It's 100% or 0%. There's no 99% done. If you're not disciplined about that, you fall into the hidden backlog problem.
The silent killer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This happens when a team uses a separate bug tracker for defects they find during an iteration. They put them in Jira or whatever, and they forget about them.
So they create this hidden backlog of quality debt.
Exactly. The feature board looks great, everything's moving to the right, but they're accumulating this mountain of bugs that isn't being prioritized against the new work. Any bug found in the iteration has to go on the main board and be treated just like a new task.
Let's get into the technical side of done. The sources push for incremental design.
Yeah, this is the cure for analysis paralysis. You don't try to design the perfect system for the next 5 years up front. It's impossible. You accept that you'll improve the design in small steps, continuously, as you learn more.
And what about code quality? They talk about collective code ownership.
This means anyone on the team can change any part of the code. It's great for spreading knowledge and for resilience. No single point of failure. But it only works if you have a consistent house style.
And the team has to define that style themselves.
Right. They have to have a debate and vote on it. The sources describe a team literally arguing about, should our functions be more than 10 lines long? They talk about the pros and cons, and they come to a consensus. Because it's their rule, they'll actually follow it.
The sources also mention something called telltale comments. What are those?
Telltale comments are those little notes developers leave in the code that are basically cries for help.
Like, this is a gross hack, but they made me do it.
Exactly. Or, this completely violates the DAO pattern, but we needed a quick fix. When a coach sees that, it's a signal of a deeper problem, a design disagreement or technical debt that needs to be surfaced and discussed properly.
And the best way to enforce the house style and share knowledge in real time is pair programming.
Yep, 2 people, 1 computer. You've got the driver who is typing and the navigator who is thinking about the bigger picture, the strategy. It just produces higher quality code, period.
And to make sure it's really disciplined, they suggest ping-pong programming.
Ping-pong is a specific flavor of pairing that enforces test-first development. Developer 1 writes a failing test, that's the ping. Then they hand the keyboard to developer 2, who has to write the simplest possible code to make that test pass, that's the pong. Then they refactor together. It's a great rhythm.
We have covered so much, from mindset to daily practices, now for the engine that drives all improvement, the retrospective.
If you're not doing retrospectives or not doing them well, you are stuck in a Groundhog Day loop. You are doomed to make the same mistakes over and over again. The retro is the bridge from the last iteration to the next one.
And it needs to be structured.
The structure is everything. You have to split the time. The first half is for looking back, gathering data, getting insights. The second half is for looking forward, creating a small number of concrete actions. If you skip the actions part, the whole thing is a waste of time and morale just plummets.
And to get those insights, you need to use visual techniques to pull the story out of people.
You do. One great one is the timeline. You get a big piece of paper, and the team collaboratively builds a timeline of the iteration with sticky notes. It helps everyone get on the same page about what actually happened.
And for the emotional journey, there's the emotions seismograph.
Yeah, each person just draws a simple line graph of their mood or energy level through the sprint. When you put them all up on the wall, you can see patterns immediately, like, wow, everyone's energy crashed on Thursday. What happened on Thursday?
But the most powerful one mentioned was the art gallery.
This one can surface things that people would never say out loud. You ask everyone to just draw a picture that represents what the iteration felt like.
And they had that incredible example of the guy who drew a stick man in a box.
Right. And when the coach asked him to talk about it, he said, I felt totally isolated. I was working on this complex thing all by myself for 2 weeks. And just like that, a huge problem about team collaboration and the need for pairing was on the table, ready to be fixed.
So once you have all these insights, you need to turn them into actions without creating a huge, overwhelming to-do list.
You use dot voting. Everyone gets, say, 3 sticky dots, and they vote for the proposed actions they think are most important. It forces the team to focus their energy on just the top 2 or 3 things that'll make the biggest difference.
And to classify those actions, we have the wonderfully weird action shoes metaphor from Edward de Bono.
It's such a memorable way to categorize the type of action needed. You've got orange gumboots for quick, dirty fixes you have to do right now.
And brown brogue.
Brown brogues are for sensible, practical process improvements. Then you have gray sneakers, which means the action is to go gather more data.
Okay.
Navy formal shoes are for standard procedures we just need to follow. Purple boots are for things that require help from someone with authority outside the team, like escalating that budget issue.
And my personal favorite, the pink fluffy slippers.
The pink fluffy slippers. Those are for when the action is about caring for people's feelings. If someone was hurt or there was a misunderstanding, the action might be for the coach or lead to have a quiet, compassionate conversation to mend things.
This entire system, from deep listening right through to the action shoes, it all seems to hinge on that one core idea we started with, the prime directive.
It all comes back to it. Because the prime directive is the antidote to a deep-seated human bias called the fundamental attribution error.
Which is our tendency to, well,
Anyway, our tendency to assume that when other people mess up, it's because of a flaw in their character. Joe is lazy. Nicola is incompetent. But when we mess up, we blame the situation. My computer was slow, the requirements were bad.
we give ourselves a pass, but we judge everyone else's character.
We do. And the coach's job is to constantly fight that bias in the team and in themselves. If you can truly start from a place of believing everyone is doing their best given their situation, you stop trying to fix people and you start trying to fix the system.
Oh.
And that is the absolute core of great coaching.
This has been an incredibly rich deep dive into the real essence of Agile coaching. We've talked about leading by example, using experiments to overcome resistance, sparking innovation with things like gold cards, and the pure power of making work and quality visible.
And the thread that runs through all of it, from NVC to the Prime Directive, is that relentless focus on empathy and psychological safety. You manage the system, and you assume the people in it are competent and well-intentioned.
So, for you, the listener, what does this all mean moving forward? We've learned that one of the biggest roadblocks to improvement is that fundamental attribution error.
So here's the challenge. I want you to apply the Prime Directive to your work tomorrow. Think about the single most difficult conflict you're facing right now with a colleague, a boss, another team.
Okay.
Now, for a moment, just assume that every single person involved in that conflict, including yourself, did the absolute best they could with the information and resources they had. Just assume it's true. If that's the case, what is the one crucial piece of information you are missing about the situation, not the person? That is the question you need to answer to unlock real systemic change.
That is excellent food for thought. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Agile coaching.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time.